I don't know. Steve, Canadian Sasquatch, coming at you with another Mead Monday. That's right, another Monday where I'm answering your guys' questions. So, firstly, new camera. It's the GoPro 7 Black. No lav mic today because I'm testing out the audio purely on that guy. It's supposed to be greatly improved. Also, hopefully the video quality is great as well. So that's where we're at right there. Next, as always, the CSB store, link down below. Mead methodologies, my shirt, mead making paraphernalia can all be bought down there, as well as a variety of other people's books. And speaking of books, Yeast, the Practical Guide to Beer Fermentation. This is a great book on all things yeast. It is geared more towards beer fermentation, but all the stuff can also be put to use towards mead making as well. So it's more just plain fermentation, but they talk about ales and lagers and all that stuff. So yeast, which segues into this week's topic. Last week I talked about fusels, and one of the things that produced a lot of fusels, or some fusels, extra fusels, however you want to word it up, is either overpitching or underpitching your yeast. That was the question that was brought about by Fear Wolf Brewery, and it was, is it too easy to overdose yeast and mead? How much do you need to overdose to get an issue? So I'm going to kind of answer that in this video. I'm going to talk more about how much yeast to use. It does take a lot to overdose, and it takes an extremely little amount to underdose. So I'm going to talk more about how to pick the right amount of yeast to use, because it's a confusing topic. There is a lot of math, there is a lot of science. So hopefully I get my math right and the science is mostly okay. But I do want to state that I am just generalizing for the most part. If you want to get more details and more precision numbers, then you'll need to do your own research on all that, because this is just going to be overview of how all of that comes together, so you can not get caught up in the math and science and still make tasty beverages. So one of the formulas, the one that's in this book specifically that I like to use for how much yeast to use, is the cells of yeast to pitch is equal to the 1 million yeast cells times the milliliters of wort or must times the degrees Plato of the wort or must. Now, wort being brew, must being wine or mead. Simple enough equation, but what exactly is a Plato? Most of us don't use Plato. We use Brix, or we use gravity. Most of us use gravity for a lot of stuff. So I'm going to do the conversions into gravity, because actually technically Plato and Brix are almost identical. So if you use Brix, you can just use Plato. Close enough. But it is essentially 1 degree Plato is 1 gram of sugar per 10 grams of liquid. That's all it is. It's just a measurement of grams of sugar in grams of a liquid. And yes, it's all metric, because science is metric. It doesn't matter where you're at. Everything is milliliters and grams and all that stuff, because it's just easier to handle that way. So with that, 1 gram of sugar in 10 grams of liquid is 1 Plato. So if you have 10 Plato, make sure I got the right number of fingers there, 10 Plato, that is 10 grams of sugar in 100 grams of liquid. Typically these are done at 20 degrees Celsius. So you have a nice baseline temperature where everything is measured the same based on the tools that are used for doing that. So that's fairly simple, right? And another thing that you can get based off of this is the potential alcohol by volume as well. So 1 degree Plato is roughly the same as 0.4% ABV, alcohol by volume. So if you have 10 Plato, that is 4% ABV. It's fairly simple, but as I mentioned earlier, a lot of us do not use Plato or bricks. We use gravity. And we can roughly say that 1 degree Plato is 4 degrees of gravity. And so if you have 10 degrees Plato, what that is 1.040 gravity, right? Because when we're talking about gravity, we do that 1.0 and then 40 or 1040, as a lot of us will just simplify how to speak it. So now we know the relationship between Plato and gravity. We can rebuild our formula to use gravity instead. So cells to pitch equals 1 million yeast cells times the milliliters of water must times gravity divided by 4, because that's how you get to Plato, right? You take your gravity, you divide by 4, and that's Plato. Great, now we know how much to pitch, but knowing how much to pitch and knowing how to pitch that much are two different things. We don't all have microscopes and all that sciencey stuff to be able to count how many yeast cells are in a milliliter. So we need to come up with a better way for us simple people without all the science equipment to make this happen. So one of the easy things is the commercial yeast maker. They all have their various packages. You've got Y Yeast with their 100 billion cells. You have White Labs with their 100 billion cells. And then you have all the various dried yeast packages, which all have roughly 20 billion cells per gram in those packages. And they say they do it that way roughly because a lot of the companies package the dry yeast in 5, 8, 11 and a half, 100 grams. So it's just easier to say how many per gram. So you know, in your package, you have a package of 5 grams, you know that is 100 billion cells of yeast right there. So that simplifies how many we know we have. And with these packages of yeast, they say that they're typically good for 1 to 5 gallons of average gravity beverage, usually talking for the beer folk, which is 1060, that is, or less. So 1060 or less is an average beer. So if we want to go over 1060, then we need to add more yeast. So if we have a 5-gallon batch of a 1120 gravity, then we would probably want to toss in 2 packages of the yeast that we're going to use, since each package is good for 5 gallons at 60 points of gravity. 60 points is this last part of the whole thing. And we throw in 2 packages because it is twice as much, right? So with that being pretty much right on the cusp of twice as much, because 60 and below, so 120 and below, that's 2 packs. Right at 120, we could toss in 3 packages. That'd be all right, because we're right on that cusp of below and over, which would be 2 packages or 3 packages. And we would still be okay with the amount of yeast we're pitching. We could even toss in 4 packages and it wouldn't be an issue at this point. It could be starting to be problematic if we pitch like 5 or 6 or more packages, but also at that point it gets to be pretty costly, and that's kind of just throwing money away. So why would you even do that? Just stick to 1 package per 60 points of gravity, and that works. As for pitching too little yeast, as homebrewers, that is really hard for us to do since each package has enough for 1 to 5 gallons. So if we put one package into a 5-gallon batch, then that is the right amount. Except if we go over that 1060 part, once again, right? But that is still an okay amount. If you go over like the 1240 points of gravity, then one package would probably start being a strain. Like you'd definitely want 2, better yet 3 or 4 packages at that point to get that fermentation being happy and the yeast not struggling because there is way too much sugar. If you're brewing more than 5 gallons, then yes, one package may not be enough at all for a 10-gallon batch of an 1124. And again, you would have issues, the yeast struggling to try and eat that much. So that would be problematic at that point. So going back to the pouches of yeast and how much they're used for, like I said, one package is good for 1 to 5 gallons at 60 gravities points. And we can do an approximation of all that. So like one package, if we're making a 1-gallon batch of any type of beverage, we know that we can have up to 1060, no problem, since it's just 1 gallon. But because it's one package for 1 gallon, we can actually multiply the gravity up so that we have enough yeast for that. So with one package of yeast, which is good for up to 5 gallons, we could take a 5 times strength beverage. So math, 1.300, that's 5 times 60. And there you go. One package is good for a 1300 gravity, 300 gravity beverage in 1 gallon. So if we break this out, we can use simple math to break this out. And so here's a chart of number of gallons up to 5 gallons and how many packets of yeast you'd want to use for each specific gravity amount. So you can see like one package is good for 1 gallon all the way up to 1.300. 2 gallons, 1 to 240, and then after that add another package all the way down to 5 gallons where you have one package up to 1060, 2 packages from 1060 to 120, and so on, 5 packages for 240 to 300 gravity points. I will have this this chart listed down below so that you can cut and paste it or whatever you want for your own notes, so you don't have to worry about screenshotting and all that nonsense. But yeah, that's how much yeast you need to use. Like I said, it's really hard to use too much or too little for us homebrewers. The one thing that I did not touch on is yeast starters. This video is kind of getting long enough as it is, and personally I don't use yeast starters, I just use packages of yeast because math is done for me and I typically don't think long enough ahead of when I'm actually going to brew to make a yeast starter. But if you guys are interested in yeast starters and how to do it and how much and all that nonsense, leave me a comment down below and I can make that another Mead Monday video, or you guys can research. Yeast starters are in this book and all over the web, of course. So yeah, just your own research, or if you're too lazy to do it, I'll do it in another video. And with that, my friends, hopefully you found this video useful, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. or give me a thumbs down. That is cool too, but just let me know why you're giving me a thumbs down so I can do something to try and turn that thumbs right way around in the next videos. Also, I'd like to invite you to hit that subscribe button down below if you have not already. And since you're down there hitting that thumbs up and subscribe button, you might as well ring that bell that's down there. That way you'll be notified when my videos pop up throughout the week. And you don't have to worry about it. You get a little notification. You can be a notification squad for the videos coming up. And of course, these Mead Monday videos would not happen without you guys. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you for your questions. And send me your questions down below, in the comments down below, so I know what to do for other videos. Like if you want a yeast starter video, I'll do a yeast starter video. Just hit me up down below and we'll make that happen. Any other questions whatsoever down below, and we can turn it into a video to keep these Mead Mondays rolling for you guys. And then with that, my friends, we are done. So be sure to have a pint of awesome. I know I will. Rye, wine, braggot. Cheers, everybody.